Hi there and welcome to 18-Minute Leaders. Today I'm really excited to introduce you to Saul Blinkoff. He is a Hollywood filmmaker who has worked with very many high-profile clients, including the Walt Disney Studios, Netflix, and Amazon. He started his animation career on Disney films like Pocahontas, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Mulan, and Tarzan. Wow. Currently, Saul is supervising producer at DreamWorks on the new award-winning series Madagascar, A Little Wild, and lives in Los Angeles with his wife and 4 children. Saul also hosts the weekly inspirational podcast Life of Awesome, which I have to tell you, I listen to regularly when I go for a run, and it's extremely inspiring. And I have the luck of working with Saul actually at JI and have done for many years. And he also serves as an advisory board member to JI. So welcome, Saul. It's great to have you here. Real honor to have you here today.
Thank you so much. So good to be here and so exciting to see all the incredible work that this organization is doing. So well done.
Thank you, and thanks for your contributions as well. We love working with you. Today's topic is fulfilling your dreams and finding purpose and meaning in all aspects of life, which is a big aspiration, but I can't wait to hear more about it. And I wanted to start off by asking you to tell us a bit about your background and why that is, one of your ideals is finding this purpose and meaning in all aspects of life.
Yeah, thank you. Well, look, I grew up in New York, and my parents, my father is a retired physician. My mother is a retired chazanit, a cantor in the Jewish world. And I grew up in a home where my twin sister was into academics and my older brother was into sports and academics, and I was the artist of the family. And growing up in my family, I was fortunate to have the support of my parents that really supported my creative ambitions. I remember seeing the movie E.T. in the theater when I was 11 years old, Steven Spielberg's movie. And I remember looking up at the screen, and I remember at the end of the movie, I tapped my mom and I was like, "Mom, that's what I'm going to do someday." And she's like, "What, you want to leave planet Earth in a spaceship?" And I was like, "No, Mom, I want to be a filmmaker." And, growing up in New York, I didn't know any filmmakers. I didn't even know that was a possibility, that was something you can do. All I knew is when I looked up to that screen, it was something I really wanted to do. So I went to the library. I got books on cameras, lenses, storyboarding. I found out that the director of E.T. is a Jewish guy named Steven Spielberg. I thought, oh, if he could do it, I could do it too. And I found out that Spielberg every weekend would make movies with kids in the neighborhood. So I got a film camera, my brother and sister, kids in the neighborhood, and I started making movies. And I just wanted to be a director. I learned everything about filmmaking. And then when I get to high school, I remember somebody coming up to me in high school and they said, "Well, what are you going to do when you get out of high school?" I said, "Well, I want to be a filmmaker." They said, "No, you don't." I said, "Yeah, I do." They said, "No, you don't, because if you want to be a filmmaker, you're going to have to move out to Hollywood. And Hollywood is filled with weirdos." They looked at me and said, "You don't want to end up a weirdo, do you?" And I said, "No, I don't want to end up a weirdo." And I'm telling you, Hannah, right then and there, I literally gave up on my dream because somebody told me I would end up a strange weirdo. Of course, today I do live in Hollywood, and my 4 kids would tell you their dad is a weirdo. So much for that. But at that point in my life, I gave up on that dream. And it's amazing to me looking back and thinking how often in life we're so impressionable and how we allow other people to affect not just the choices we make, but if we actually believe that we can accomplish something. At that point, I gave up on it. I went back to just drawing. And lucky for me, I have incredibly supportive parents. They got this art teacher to come to the house. And every week she would teach me to draw from life. Remember, she said to me, "Saul, drawing is about seeing. You have to develop a certain lens for how to look at the world." Incredible teacher. And I was also, for anybody listening who's an artist, it was very difficult for me to draw hands. I remember that time in my life. And this art teacher said to me, "Oh, if hands are difficult for you to draw, I want you to focus on drawing hands every night before you go to bed." And I said to her, "Yeah, but I told you hands are what I don't do well. Why would I want to do that?" She goes, "Because I want to turn your weakness into your strength."
Wow,
And
that's
I
so
did that. What a powerful lesson. And so important to have great mentors and great teachers along our journey. Eventually, I saw another movie junior year in high school that changed my life. I saw the movie The Little Mermaid. And when I saw that movie, I remember tapping my mom at the end of the movie. I'm like, Mom, that's what I want to do someday. She's like, What? You want to fall in love with a fish? I'm like, No, I want to work at Disney. I want to be a Disney animator. And, back then, this is before the internet. This is a long time. This is, as my kids say, this is the olden days, right?
Yeah.
So before the internet, if you wanted to be a Disney animator today, you type in Google, how do you become a Disney animator? And you get a lot of answers. You'll find out. But back then, no internet. So my mom took me to Disney World, not my older brother, not my twin sister, takes me to Disney World to find out how I could become a Disney animator. And we soon learned that Disney recruited all their animators from one of 8 schools. That was it. There were 8 art schools around the world where they recruited their animators from. So I ended up going to one of these schools in Columbus, Ohio, the Columbus College of Art and Design. And I remember the first week in school, I was surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of kids who all had the same dream as me. And a week after school started, a Disney representative comes from the Walt Disney Company. He stands on a stage to give a presentation to our school, talking about the portfolio requirements that Disney's looking for. And he says, Before I begin, let me ask you, and we're in this giant auditorium, Kana. There's every freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. It's filled. There's 750 students there. He looks out to us and he says, How many of you want to be Disney animators? And every hand went up. He said, Just so you know, out of the 750 of you, maybe, just maybe 4 of you will ever work there. That's how competitive it is. And I remember when he said that, I thought one thing. I wonder who the other 3 are going to be. Because in life, we either really believe in ourselves that we can accomplish something or we don't. I mean, deep down, do we really believe that we can accomplish? And at that point in my life, whether it was my parents' support or just my ambition, I really believed in myself. Then he said, in order to get into Disney, you need a figure drawing portfolio. Figure drawing, like life drawing of humans and animals, all drawings done from life. He said, We don't want to see any cartoon characters. We want all drawings from life. So I went to figure drawing classes and got my portfolio together sophomore year, sent it into Disney, and I got rejected. And I didn't care because I didn't expect to get in my sophomore year. I was just kind of going through the process. And I remember another year goes by. I get my drawings together with my best friend, Andy. Andy was this incredible artist. And even just reflecting on him now, just his work ethic was amazing. And me being friends with someone like that made me a better artist. And it's one of those things I tell my kids all the time, who we choose to spend our time with actually affects who we become, you
Yes.
know? And his work ethic became my work ethic. And we were known as 2 of the best artists in the school. And I'll tell you, when I started the school, I was not one of the best. I was one of the worst artists in the school. But with that work ethic I learned from Andy and the discipline that I put into drawing constantly, I got my portfolio together, and so did Andy. And a couple weeks later, I remember getting a call from Andy, and he's like, Saul, did you hear? I'm like, No, did you? He's like, Yeah. I go, What'd you hear? He goes, I got it. I said, You got what? He goes, I got the internship. I'm like, Congratulations. Like, but you didn't hear? I'm like, No, but they could be trying to call me right now. I got to hang up. We didn't have call waiting back then in the olden days, right? So I hang up the phone. I'm pacing in my dining room. My mom comes in. I was home that time. She's like, What happened? I'm like, Mom, Andy just heard he got in. She's like, Oh, they're going to call you soon. I'm like, Mom, you need to say that. You're my mom. I'm pacing back and forth and they don't call. So finally, I pick up the phone. I dial the head of Disney myself. Well, who does that? Well, I did. Because as I always tell my kids, when there's something you want in your life, you will do anything to get it. And I couldn't stand waiting. I called up the head of Disney. I get the guy on the phone and I said, Hi, my name is Saul and I'm interested in getting into Disney. What happened? He goes, Oh, Saul, I have your name on a list. I'm like, Yeah. And he goes, Yeah, you didn't make it. I said, What? He goes, Yeah, you didn't make it. I said, Oh. I said, What about Andy? He goes, Yeah, he made it. You didn't. I was like, Thanks. I hung up the phone. And that was one of those bittersweet moments in my life. It was sweet because I was happy for my best friend, but bitter because my dreams were shattered. And Andy goes to Disney World, the happiest place on earth they call Disney, sunny, beautiful Orlando. I go back to Ohio in the wintertime, freezing, bitter cold, gray skies. Those of you in the UK have a little inkling of what I'm
Yeah,
talking about.
it's raining right now, actually, if you can hear the rain.
There you go. And when I get back to Disney, I felt like a loser. I mean, it was really one of the hardest times of my life. I felt I was known as the guy that didn't get what he really, really wanted.
Mm,
And then I came up with a brilliant way to take that feeling away, that feeling of being a loser. I gave up. I gave up on the entire dream because reality set in. Reality was Andy was an awesome artist and I was just average. Who was I to think that I could work there? I gave up. I went and saw a movie a week later. Sometimes you see a movie and it just speaks to you for what you're going through in life. First, it was E.T., then it was The Little Mermaid. I go to the movies and I'm watching this movie. And at the end of the movie, tears are streaming down my face, crying. And the movie's a true story about a guy who's 5 feet tall. He's not even athletic and he wants to play football at one of the greatest sports universities in the world, Notre Dame. And the movie is Rudy. And if you look at the movie poster for the movie Rudy, it says, when people say dreams don't come true, tell them about Rudy.
mm,
He gets in after rejection, after rejection, after rejection. And I'm watching that movie and I'm thinking at the end, you know what? If an unathletic kid could get into Notre Dame with an insane amount of hard work, then me, an untalented artist, could get into Disney with an insane amount of hard work. Got that portfolio together. I sent it into Disney and boom, I got into Disney. I started on the internship, started working on Pocahontas and many other Disney movies. And that's really what set the course of my life for storytelling, bringing meaning, because it was the movie, Rudy, that changed how I saw myself. It wasn't just going to a movie and thinking, oh, movies entertain. Movies can speak to us, stories.
mm.
Human beings are hungry for stories. And when we can relate to a protagonist, to a main character in a story, we feel like we've experienced it. I remember seeing Karate Kid as a kid in the theater. I didn't think I was watching a movie about a kid who was trying to do karate. I saw a movie about a kid, Daniel, who was trying to fit in. And I felt like I relate to that. I think all of us feel that. So the power of stories really impacted me and made me want to be a storyteller and a filmmaker in order to make an impact and ultimately to bring meaning.
I think that's such an important message, especially for the youth of today, because I think we live in an environment of images and social media and success. And a lot of people watching this, especially, young people starting out in their career or kids in school, have had that experience where they have this dream and they get knocked down, or they expect to be successful immediately and like, oh, well, I've done everything she's done. Why don't I have 1 million followers, right? And there is this gap in between. And it's what I'm hearing from you is this extreme resilience of like, you get knocked down, but that's okay. You brush yourself off and you start again. And in fact, that enriched your life. The fact that you
Sure. Yeah.
experienced failure, it actually helped you become a success. Whereas, if everything's easy all your life, it's unlikely that you're going to have the resilience you need to get to that successful point. And I think a lot of our kids don't realize that with success comes extreme hard work and also determination. Like one of the things that you said is that you didn't give up because you knew that you were going to do this come what may. And it's that knowing deep inside of you and that determination that really will allow anyone to succeed. It's exactly what you said, that anything is possible if you will it enough. It will happen. But you may
And you know what?
challenges.
Let me add on to what you're saying. I also find that when in life we have expectations that something is going to be difficult,
Yeah,
and that we're going to fail, that enables us or energizes us or motivates us to be able to handle it. If we have those expectations that, yeah, I'm going to fail, then you realize that failure is part of the process of learning. Failure, just because someone fails doesn't make them a failure. The only way to learn is to fail. Steve
yeah,
Jobs failed at making a gajillion computers. Thomas Edison, go look up the number. I don't know what it is, but it's like 9,900 whatever. He made light bulbs that didn't work. And he has a quote that says something like about failure. He goes, well, I learned 9,999 ways not to do something.
yeah.
And one of the things I talk about a lot in my podcast is clarity. Clarity is such an important thing. It exists in our minds. When we have clarity to achieve a goal, and when we have the expectations that we're going to struggle, it energizes us. We are prepared. And that goes for relationships too. Don't think you're going to get married and the work in marriage is over. Once you get married, the work in the relationship begins. And
Mm.
if we have expectations that marriages take work, we're able to deal with it. Same thing with parenting. Parenting, you look at those Facebook posts people have on parenting and you see, I worked at Disney World for a long time. And every family at Disney World, when they go to Disney, they want to get the picture of the family in front of the Disney castle. And I remember people spending, their life savings to come to Disney World. And these parents, they're like, I don't care about rides. I just got to get that picture of me and my kids in front of the castle. And what you don't see behind the scenes is the parents fighting with the kids to take the picture. The kid wants to go on Space Mountain, wants to do that, whatever. And
Yeah.
the dad's like, if you don't sit in front of this castle right now, I'm going to kill you. You're not. And they're fighting and they're crying. And then all of a sudden the kid comes over and they ding, smile. And then they're fighting, whatever. But that's like real. Families are real, and if we have expectations that families take work, parenting, it takes work. It should motivate us and energize us to accomplish.
So true. I mean, I'm loving hearing about your experiences about, at Disney and the animation experiences that you have. I've experienced your talent as well that has been hard learned. Why are you so passionate about animation and directing, and also with a Jewish slant, because, we are JI, like how do you think it will help the Jewish world today as well? I'd like to just hear a bit more about that. Like, why are you so passionate about it? And
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
wow.
look, I didn't grow up super religious. I grew up in a loving conservadox home. I'm always
Yeah.
weary of labels, but I was lucky. I grew up in a home where my parents had a strong love of Yiddishkeit and Shabbat, and I went to Camp Ramon. My parents went to Israel every year, and we went to Israel a lot. But there was a point in my life where I had to figure out how I fit into the Jewish people as an adult. What was my identity for me? Judaism was a lot through my parents growing up. But when I was like 24, I remember I was working on the movie Mulan. It was the third movie I was working with at Disney. And I ended up going to Israel after Mulan before I started working on Tarzan and learning in a Jewish program. And that's when the light switch went off that I wanted to connect with Judaism. I remember leaving that program. It was only 10 days in Israel with Rabbi Benny Friedman and Rabbi David Aaron. And I remember
That's so amazing. I just literally came from a meeting with Rabbi David Aaron. That's so weird.
That's amazing. Anybody who's ever in a meeting with Rabbi David Aaron, I say, is a lucky person, because he is an incredible person and he's such an advocate for education, as you know. And he had a big impact on me. And I remember leaving those classes about life and meaning when I was in Israel in my 20s. And I remember thinking, you know what, for the first time in my life, I don't want to just be Jewish. I want to live Jewish. And I went back to Disney, became a director, and started thinking, how can I use my Jewish identity to impact what I do? And actually, the first thing I did, I started directing a Winnie the Pooh movie, Winnie the Pooh Springtime with Rue. And I remember I had this big drawing of the 100-acre wood where Winnie the Pooh lives. And I'm talking to people in the UK here, so I know you all know about A.A. Milne and Winnie the Pooh. Most people think it's only from Disney, but it came out way before Walt Disney had it. And in the 100-acre wood, Winnie the Pooh has this little house on a tree. And I thought to myself, wait, Disney artists like hide things in the movies. They draw stuff. I'm going to hide something. So I went over and I hid next to Winnie the Pooh's house. I drew in a mezuzah. I put a mezuzah in the movie. Now he's not Winnie the Pooh. He's Winnie the Jew. And
look out for that.
yeah. And a mezuzah was one of those things that I learned about from Rabbi David Aaron on this program.
Right.
And a mezuzah is that beautiful reminder at a doorway. We put God's name because it's a reminder before I'm going out into the world to ask myself a question. I'm going out into the world. What kind of a world do I want to create? What am I living for? And from that moment on, after learning about that and about mezuzah and other things, I wanted to start utilizing Judaism as part of my filmmaking arsenal and started injecting Jewish values into the Disney movies I was directing. and I've never looked back. I mean, every project I do now, I always make sure it's aligned with my Jewish values and putting those values into films. And
That
yeah,
is that is amazing. I mean, I can't believe 18 minutes is gone because I could talk to you forever. It's just gone like that. But I mean, how crazy! You heard it here first that those Jewish values are in all of Saul's movies, so look out for them. But you know, I think that you've shared some incredible messages and takeaways for me, and I'm really grateful for sharing that with the world, and the fact that you put these Jewish values into your work for the wider world is really powerful. We try to end these sessions with a tweet takeaway. So if you could tweet one message that summarizes your core values and ideals, what would it be?
I love it. The message you could really see beautifully in the film The Lion King. It's all about responsibility. And the one message that I remind myself that I like to share wherever I speak is that we shouldn't wake up every day and think, what can I do to make myself happy? We should wake up every day and what can I do? Ask ourselves, what can I do to bring myself meaning? And meaning only comes from taking responsibility for the world. And where do I take responsibility? Wherever I have the ability to respond. To wake up every day and say, I look at my passion and all my abilities as a responsibility to serve humanity.
Wow. I mean, that is a big tall order, but an amazing
And
takeaway.
it's the circle of life, and it moves us all. There you go.
Amazing, amazing. Saul, I can't believe that 20 minutes has gone like that, but thank you for all you're doing for the world in its entirety. We love working with you and we look forward to hearing more. And watch out for the next conversation on 18-minute leaders coming very soon. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saul.